That's how we sync the cameras and the audio later on.
Great, amazing.
Some technical stuff, technical jargon.
I'm impressed, guys, with your tech stuff.
Thank
really.
you, Laimei. Cheers.
Cheers. I'm gonna join you afterwards. Cheers.
No problem. No pressure. You drink your tea. We'll drink our whiskey. No pressure at all.
This is very nice,
guys.
Wow, that is very nice. You know, sometimes you can just buy based off the bottle design alone, I guess.
Yeah, this is very nice.
So we're drinking today the Benromach classic Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey. Yeah, 15 years. It's very nice, actually. So it's not a simple whiskey. There's some complexity there.
Yeah, but I feel like it's complex, but it's smooth. It goes down very smoothly.
Yeah, it's like a beginner's complex.
I think so.
Right? Would you say that?
I think so. It's definitely light though. It's definitely not a heavy drink.
Anyway, Laimei.
Interesting.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming here.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for inviting me.
So let me ask you. So just tell us, like, what is hypnotherapy all about?
So hypnotherapy is a little bit magical, right? Most of the time, a lot of people are even afraid, right? Wow, she's gonna do some hypnotherapy with me, you know?
There's some stigma attached to hypnosis, the word hypnosis, right? Like, I think for a lot of people who don't really know, you think hypnotize and you think of like movies and you think of like that movie Get Out, right? Where like she's tapping her tea glass and, you know, sends the kid into like this limbo stage and gets taken advantage of. So I think there's a lot of stigma attached to it. So like let's clear everything up here.
Yeah, so that's the difference, right? That's a good question that you start with, because you have stage hypnotherapy, stage hypnosis, and you have hypnotherapy, right? Stage hypnosis is entertainment, right? You want to get people engaged, and what they're really doing on the stage is real, right? What I do with people is I help them to improve themselves, right? I help them to deal with childhood trauma, to feel better in their own body. So that's why we regress them, right? So hypnotherapy, we work on the mind. We work on the subconscious mind. Because a lot of our beliefs, patterns, convictions, it's all stored in our unconscious mind, right? And these are the patterns, beliefs that we absorbed from our caregivers, parents, siblings, teachers between 2 and 10 years old, right? So you might have a belief like, I'm not good enough, or I'm always lazy, or I really have this fear of failure all the time. So to really deal with these things, these self-limiting beliefs, you know, who are blocking you, they're keeping you stuck, you really need to go back to the subconscious. You need to go back where these beliefs are stored. And hypnotherapy brings you back, right? It's a regression who brings you back in a deep relaxation. You're not asleep, you're completely in control. You know, it's like you go to very deep meditation. I regress people. We find out what's the real cause of their self-limiting belief. And when they see, in fact, what's the cause, right, then we can shift it. So then I use techniques of NLP and everything to shift these self-limiting beliefs.
So what does it mean to regress somebody, though? Because like regression, you know, that when you say that, it people tend to think it's you're going backwards.
Yeah.
But is that what it is?
So regression, I bring you back to your childhood.
Really?
Right. So with hypnotic techniques that we have, and it's not dangerous at all, right? As you go to a really deep level, your nervous system is asleep, right? So your conscious mind isn't keeping you awake, right? So I count and I bring you back to a scene which, for example, you adapted this fear of failure, right? So I just bring you back to a scene between 2 and 10 years old, right? You might even go back to the uterus. Some people go back when they were in their belly of the mom. Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
So how do you,
incredible.
Like, is the person fully conscious during this whole process?
So the person is awake, right? The person is not asleep, because I keep them awake.
So they would remember everything.
Yeah. And they need to remember everything, right? They need to be aware of everything. That's very important, because we shift awareness, right? That's where the magic happens, because if you understand something, then you can solve it.
So can you kind of take us through like, how does it actually work? Like, how if I were to sit, like, be a client of yours or a patient of yours in one of your sessions, like, how does it actually work?
The hypnotherapy session itself?
Yeah.
So first of all, I need to have an intake, right? I need to talk with a person and I need to feel if I can help this person, because even each hypnotherapist has its own specialization, right? I work on anxiety, fears, confidence, challenges. If me and the person were a fit, we feel that we can do this together because it's a journey together. There's trust, that person needs to trust me, right? I'm going to go back into their past, into their childhood. So if we establish this relationship of trust, the person comes to my studio or we do it online, and I bring them, like with counting techniques, I bring them to a very deep relaxation, and then I regress them. I regress them to 3 scenes.
So I'm curious. So when you say you regress them, so if I'm the patient, I'm getting regressed. Does that mean I enter memories that I have stored in my subconscious that I may not even realize I have? That kind of stuff?
So you can go back to a scene which you're completely aware of, and you can go back to scenes which you blocked out. People discover things that they don't know anymore. The thing is, it's not really about the scene. So I can regress you to 1,000 scenes, right? I need to regress you to the emotion you had at that point, to the feeling you had at that point, because we need to shift the emotion. So whenever I regress people, they see like, okay, that like probably that fear of failure, that was my mom's, my mom really felt like a failure. So me as a child, I absorbed this. When you become aware of this, right, we kind of cheat the mind. We change the scene.
Like you're hacking the mind in a way.
We cheat the mind, because the mind doesn't know what's real or wrong. Does it make sense? So if you had a belief when you're 8, like I'm not enough, I'm not enough. Now when you're 40, it's not serving you anymore because you're blocked, you're procrastinating all the time, you don't know what to do in your job or in your personal relationships, right? It's not serving you anymore. So when you go back, you see, oh yeah, no, that was me when I was 8. Yeah, no, now I'm 40, right? So we change the scene.
So how do you help your clients change the scene? Like, how does the therapy side of it all kick in? Because let's say you regress somebody and, they're going through a scene or a memory stored in their subconscious. How do they learn from that? How do they grow from that?
Awareness.
Like, how do they realize, oh, that's what it was? Like, how do they go through that kind of epiphany?
Because, we have techniques to do that. There's no one straight answer, right? We regress them. We ask them, what's the link? So the client has the answers. I don't know the answers, right? So for example, I worked with, let's call him Jake, right? Let me give you an example. I worked with Jake, who has an amazing fear, like a tremendous fear of procrastination. He's studying his master's, he has a great job, but again, he's stuck all the time, he's anxious, he's depressed and everything. So he comes in for a session. Right, so I tell him, let's first work on the anxiety because he's worrying constantly. His mind doesn't stop from worrying and he's beating himself up all the time, right? So I tell him, okay, let's first work on the anxiety because for me, I understand that that's dominating, right? So I bring him in deep relaxation. I regress him to the childhood scenes and he goes back to his one scene where his narcissistic dad was, who really never took care of him. Then another scene with his aunt who took care of him. His mom and dad weren't really there, so the aunt took care of him. And then another scene where the mom was abandoning him, right? So seeing these 3 scenes with him worrying all the time, he saw that as an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 12-year-old, he was already worrying all the time. Because his life was so unstable. The people who needed to love him, like his parents, they weren't there. His aunt, she really loved him. So luckily he had that support of the aunt, right? But the aunt also put a lot of pressure on my client, right? When he was small, because she also felt like a failure. So you see how these dynamics work? Yeah. So when he saw of course I was worried. My whole household was a mess. There was not any stability. But then with my experience, I help him to see, like, he was worrying because as an 8-year-old, he was already looking for a solution, right? A solution that the adults didn't have. So with letting him see these small things, he's like, oh yeah, so if at 8 I already was looking for solutions, then now I can solve my things. Because now my life is pretty good compared to my childhood. You see? So in this way we shifted.
So during the session, you're constantly talking, and are they responding to you verbally? Is it just an open dialogue?
Yeah, I keep them awake because otherwise you're gonna fall asleep.
So you guys are just having a conversation.
Not like we're talking here. You know, I need to do this, I need to do techniques, or I need to touch the head, or I need to touch the arm.
Okay, so how do you actually put someone? I mean, that doesn't sound right. I don't, like, I was gonna say put someone under, but that's not really. I don't think that's accurate in terms of what you do, right? Like, how do you hypnotize somebody, or how do you start the hypnosis therapy? Like, what are the actual techniques?
So let me show you. It's very, very easy. Okay, so for anyone who's listening, they can just follow us. Okay, hypnosis is all about the positioning of the eyes. Okay, so when you look up, you push your eyeballs up. Right? You can even do it with me. Yeah, push your eyeballs up and look at an imaginary line on the ceiling, but really push them up as if you're looking into your own eyebrows, right?
I'm getting dizzy by doing it.
Yeah,
is that
very
normal?
good. That's normal. Yeah, we need that. So breathe in, breathe out, breathe in once more, pushing your eyeballs up, breathe out. One last time, breathe in. Keep your eyeballs up, keep them up, keep them up. The blinking in your eyes, it means you're going under hypnosis, and you close your eyelids down. You feel at this point, you're relaxing, right? You have this rapid eye movement who makes you go into relaxation. Hey guys, I hypnotize you here.
No, when you said that rapid eye movement, I was really having that, yeah.
Yeah. So with this, it starts. You know, with this it starts. And then I have other techniques, you know, like we walk from a staircase, or we go into a garden, and you follow my voice.
How long does it usually take? It's different with everyone. When some people are more easily hypnotized, some people are less likely to be hypnotized. Is that true?
Yeah, people who are very much in control. So
they call it suggestibility, right? Some people are more suggestible, some people are less so, right?
Yeah. No, like 99% of people are suggestible. I never had anyone I couldn't hypnotize. The only problem is when people are very in control. They're control freaks. They're afraid. They don't want to let go, right? So if I notice that, I learn them I teach them self-hypnosis. I send them home. Like, do this every day for 7 days, then come back. And then it works. Yeah.
You know, I'm not just saying this, and I don't know if it's just the whiskey, but I do feel like a little bit different right now. I feel like a little tingly. I do feel more relaxed. I don't know, like maybe it's all bullshit because like we haven't like really done anything, but I don't know. I'm feeling, maybe it's placebo, right? But I feel like a little bit.
Is he supposed to feel a little something right now? That's the better question.
I feel like there's like this. I'm looking through the world in the kind of like, it's a little bit like,
he's very easy to go under.
I'm like super suggestible.
Yeah.
She didn't even start speaking, you're already out.
No, I'm just saying how I feel, but it could be a lot of different things, or it could just be a complete placebo effect, right? It could all be bullshit. I don't know.
Well, what do you think
the
from your
placebo?
perspective?
Yeah, good question, right? The placebo effect, in fact, is the doctor who lives inside of you, right? That's the placebo effect. But just rolling your eyeballs up, right? Just doing that and really concentrate, because you said I'm getting dizzy. This is really, you're focusing, right? And then you let yourself go. Of course, your body relaxes. Right? And my voice, I'm not using a pure hypnotic voice. I cannot do that.
So you have to change your voice when you're doing this.
Yeah.
Like, how do you change your, like, what do you change it to?
We count. Like 1, 2, 3, 4.
But do you change the tone of your voice?
Yeah, I change everything.
More calming and stuff like that, right? Probably.
Yeah,
Is it like a lower pitch voice or something?
Yeah, so imagine you're walking on a beach and you're feeling the sand
it's more peaceful
under your toes, and you feel the sun warming your skin.
I can listen to that all day.
He's going out again.
Yeah, oh my God.
I just stared off. I literally just stared off.
You got a good voice.
You're a great subject. You're a great... yeah.
You don't have to do anything. If he was your patient, you just sit there and he's just out. He just starts spitting some history.
Well, I'm glad that we're clearing up, that you cleared up a little thing for me. And I'm not sure if anyone caught this in the beginning, but, you know, I was talking about like the stigma of hypnosis, and you were talking about, well, there's one branch of it that's called stage hypnosis, which is purely really for entertainment. So I've seen that at like some like a kid's bar mitzvah,
like trade shows,
or like
something.
A trade show, some sort of birthday party, or you know, some sort of event. It's like a magician going up on stage and they're hypnotizing like a crowd full of people, or like, you know, a few people sitting there, and they make them do silly things. And I think that's what most people that's the image that most people tend to gravitate towards too when you say something like this. But that's like a whole different thing, right? So I'm really glad we're clearing that up in terms of like the actual therapy side. And in addition to that, because I knew you were coming on the show, so I did some light research before you came. And, you know, before I started looking it up, you know, I had it in my mind that kind of hypnotherapy was this kind of like this really holistic alternative medicine. And it was a little bit like woo-woo in there. But then I started reading, and there's actually been a lot of legitimate scientific research to back up the science of it. And I saw professors and researchers from Stanford, Harvard Medical School, some like really legit people talking about how they were doing controlled experiments with hypnosis versus other forms of therapy. And that the results they got through hypnosis were significantly better in terms of like changing things. Like one particular study I'll refer to was one about weight loss. And they saw that the group that went under hypnosis, and this was Harvard Medical School, that went under hypnosis lost significantly more weight than the other controlled group. So there's been a lot of documented research by really credible and legitimate scientists in this field. So, you know, what's your view on that, and how do you approach hypnotherapy for yourself? Are you more science-based in your approach, or is it just something that you've learned through your own experience? Like how do you approach it?
So I came to study hypnotherapy because I had a burnout, I think 6 years ago. After working like 16 hours a day, I was completely burned out, right? I first went to nutrition school, which kind of helped me like 30-40%. But, you know, I wasn't how I used to be, you know, and if you're someone who works like 14-16 hours a day, you know, you're not really happy if you can only work like 4 to 5 hours a day. That's not satisfying. So I stumbled on Marissa Peer. So she's amazing. So her hypnotherapy is called rapid transformational therapy. So it's hypnotherapy with NLP, cognitive behavior therapy, and psychotherapy. So it's hypnotherapy, but with a lot of cognitive skills, right? So I just tried it out just for myself. I wasn't someone who's interested in this.
You were a patient first.
Yeah. So I did it, and I was blown away because my health, I think it improved like 80%.
How so?
Just because, you know, the basis of hypnosis is it brings you in such a deep relaxation that your nervous system balances. And, you know, whatever trauma you had, and we all had trauma, you know, is it a criticizing teacher? Is it abuse from I don't know who in your childhood? Whatever happened can be really traumatic, right? All the trauma is stored in your body, right? You have a famous scientist, his name is Bessel van der Kolk, and he says the body keeps the score. So, you know, your body is like a history of your past, right? So if you start to work with hypnotherapy, your body relaxes in this deep, deep mode, and it really restores your nervous system. Because what happens, you know, if trauma accumulates, and we get more stress and more anxiety and more fear, we're like constantly in fight and flight, right? So we constantly have like cortisol going on, you know, it's like racing in our body, right? We have these hormones everywhere. Stress is really high. You know, it's like there's a line in front of us, like 24/24, but it's not true. The line is not there. But a lot of people are experiencing this. So your body is constantly in high alert, right? So what do you do then with your body constantly in high alert? Because I'm glad that you said that. There's a lot of scientific proof, that hypnotherapy really helps. If you look at a lot of studies, I think Harvard Medical School released this study that 85% of all illnesses, all chronic illnesses, it's stress related. It's all related with stress. So you don't need to work on the symptoms, you need to work on the stress, right? And that's what hypnotherapy does. It brings you to such a deep relaxation, not only during the session, right? Because after the session, I make audios for my clients, which they need to listen to every day before they sleep, and we reprogram the mind. We reset the mind. Right.
I have a question. So, I've said this on the show before. I battle with anxiety, and
he has legitimate anxiety attacks.
Like I get anxiety attacks. Yeah, panic attacks, and I definitely face it often.
Okay.
But one thing that I've been doing now is using an app called Calm, and just doing some, just going through it's program every day. It's like 15, 20 minutes a day. Yeah. And I just sit there, go into a meditative state, and just calm myself a little bit, because I have like a high heartbeat because of anxiety, for like, even when I'm under control, it'll come. So I'm trying to use that to kind of calm me down a little bit. Now, is that, because you're just saying your body needs to get into this calm state and stuff like that. Is that something that's like a form of hypnotherapy? If I'm going to relate meditation to that, does that work or no?
I don't know the app myself.
Okay.
If you are able to go to a really deep meditative state, kind of you would have the same results, but I don't know how deep you can go. To really meditate is difficult.
Hard, yeah.
It's very, very difficult.
Sure.
So just staying there for 5 minutes, that's not meditating. So it's kind of different. I don't know the app. I'm really interested in knowing more about the app. But if you're dealing with anxiety attacks, with anxiety, with phobias, you need to go back to the subconscious and figure out why you have that.
Yeah, I think you're making a point, because, for example, with meditation, I think it's just in general, it'll calm me down and just kind of like keep it chill. But it's not a solution. It's just sort of like, like a temporary Band-Aid, just for that moment. You know what I mean? Like if I'm getting hit, like I'll just sit down and just like listening to this thing, calm myself down a little bit, and then I'm good, It depends which kind of meditation, because sometimes even in meditation, they do regression, right? So meditation and hypnosis, our audios are quite related.
There's overlap there, right? Sometimes.
Yeah. I used to do these courses with this guru, a meditation guru in India, from the oldest school of meditation. He used to come here to Shanghai. He's amazing. He's a guy of 75, and he looks like 50 because he meditates all his life. Really amazing guy. And when you go to his meditation classes, it's like 3 or 4 days. That was amazing.
Wow.
That's mind blowing. But these are real gurus, they really teach you how to do meditation. Meditation, of course, it helps, right? Mindfulness, all these techniques help. But from my point of view, if you don't understand why you're having that, how can you change it?
Yeah.
It's like my tea is getting cold. Yeah, of course. I can add some hot water and I can keep on adding, or I can just drink it, right?
Or you can put some whiskey in there too.
Yeah, it's true. You didn't pass me the whiskey yet.
Just say the word. I'm joking.
No, but so does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense, because the little that I know, I've done a little reading about hypnotherapy myself in the past, and also when hearing you were coming on the show. But I know that there's a lot of different forms of hypnotherapy, and basically it's to target different types of problems that need to be solved. But also, hypnotherapy in general is a form of meditation where it's just a bit deeper. Like it's more like a sharper attack, as opposed to in general meditation. I guess general meditation is just more about relaxation, and
it's very different, right?
But yours is more like specific, and
we go to the subconscious, right? If you're dealing with like anxiety or depression, really debilitating things, I've suffered from anxiety more than 20 years.
Oh, you had it?
Yeah, I had, and I thought it was normal, right?
And it's gone away?
Yeah, of course.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
I do
one
it
thing.
every day. That's my job. I
amazing.
really work with people on anxiety because it was so debilitating for
I might
me.
have to talk to you.
I invite you.
Well, so that's one thing I think I really want to understand, because your own story, I think, would be one of the clearest kind of anecdotes and pictures to kind of realize, like, what is this all about? Like, are you willing to share, like, when you said before you, like, you were talking about, like, how you got into this in the first place, and you were a patient before that. So how did it really change you?
The hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
First of all, it changed my health. It started with my health.
But what did you see improve, like, specifically?
So my energy levels, like I told you, I could work like 4 to 5 hours a day. Now I can even work 12. I'm not working 12, but I could do 12 hours a day.
And you attribute that solely to the hypnotherapy?
Because I did my own trauma work. You know, it's not only about doing the work. You know, what happened was I didn't get a burnout because I was working so much. I got a burnout because we were working in the restaurant at that time. I was managing the restaurants with my husband, and we had quite a big team, you know, and people in the restaurant business, you know, they're hard to deal with, you know. So not the clients, I mean, they're lovely, they're amazing. But the personnel here, it's tough. The turnover, it's constantly, you know, plus working 16 hours. The cultural differences. So I really needed to stand up. You know, I'm a really kind person. You know, I used to be even kinder, like always helping people. You know, I would rather do it myself than asking them. But of course, as a boss, that doesn't work, right? So that was my mistake. I did everything myself, right?
And that just burnt you out.
Yeah, because I didn't have the voice to speak, you know, and that's related to my past. I never had a voice. I always used to be invisible, right? So it was tough for me to stand out. I could do it, but it was tough, you know. Sometimes I remember this, that sometimes I just went to the bar and I took a vodka, I drank it straight on, because vodka makes you awake, you know, before my shift, because I needed to wake up, you know. I was so tired. I was so drained, you know. And then slowly on, it just led to a complete burnout, right? Yeah. And it wasn't only the nutrition. I really needed to look at, like, why couldn't I stand up for myself? Because, you know, I was the co-owner, right? I could do it. They would have listened to me if I would have had the power to say so, to be empowered, but I didn't have that. Right, so that's what hypnotherapy really did for me.
Was there anything else besides the improved energy that you felt?
The anxiety went away.
So the anxiety just went away.
The anxiety went away.
Like the problems were still there, but you just had less anxiety about it.
I learned skills. You know, anxiety is always there. I just want to share that with you. Anxiety is not your enemy. You know, anxiety is, you need to befriend it, because whenever you're standing on a balcony, you're going to feel anxiety. It's incorporated in your body, you know, it's a body mechanism. It wants to help you, you know, because it wants to help you from not falling down from that balcony, right? So you need to you want to befriend anxiety, you know, with certain skills. You feel the anxiety, you know, what is it trying to tell you? What do you need at this point? You know, and then you can shift it. Anxiety will always be there, but you need to manage it, right? Well, so this is what I learned.
So what are these skills that you're referring to?
For me, it's resilience. And resilience is the capacity to bounce back from difficult situations, right? Whenever you speak up, using your voice, putting boundaries with certain people, changing your own inner critic, because our own inner voice, especially for people who have anxiety, is so bad.
And low confidence. I mean, they all that voice affects all of that.
Yeah, it beats you up. We would never talk to a friend like this, how we speak to ourselves, right? And it's really, this is what hypnotherapy does, you know? It works on fear of rejection, fear of criticism, fear of not being good enough. Most of the people who are dealing with depression, you know, and even anxiety, a lot of them have this underlying belief, I'm not good enough. you know, because that teacher told me I could never do this, or my dad told me, oh, you know, you're not worth anything, or, you know, so we have this underlying pattern, I'm not good enough, right? So this anxiety, it stays with us.
Yeah, we talk about fear of failure a lot on this show. I think that's it's a big problem in a lot of people, including myself. But am I accurate to say that, like, because you were talking about these skills, was it through hypnotherapy you had some very profound realizations and epiphanies that led to you knowing to work on these skills? It's not like the hypnotherapy gave you these skills directly, but it made you realize certain things about yourself that you were like, okay, well, I need to accumulate these skills and work on them. Was that kind of how it works?
Hypnotherapy gives you the skills
Directly.
because the modality that I use, we use skills. So I really believe, like, I love therapy, you know, which is all good. It's good to look in the luggage, you know, sort everything out, fold it again, close the luggage, you know, leave the past where it is, because anyway, you cannot change it. But if you don't have a voice, yeah, you need to do something to gain that voice, right? If you're afraid of failure, you probably need to work on your confidence and on your empowerment, taking decisions, managing yourself, right? So I teach that to my clients. We teach that with hypnotherapy.
So during the sessions and over a course of several sessions, and if the patient is willing to work on themselves, because I would have to assume that a big part of it is, I mean, because you're only in there with them for the 2 hours or however long the session is, but a lot of it must be when they go home and when they're on their own, they have to continue to work at it, right?
Yeah.
So it's over a course of this whole thing, you come out from it with these new skills. But I think that's where it is. It's like we're like, what's the definition of skills, right? Like they're not just going to all of a sudden learn how to like play the piano, right? It's like, but it's more realizations about yourself and things you need to do, right?
Yeah, it's more about working on your talents, working on your core gifts. Core gifts is something very, very interesting. You know, I developed my program. I brought a book. You guys are from the US. He's a very famous psychotherapist, Ken Page.
So the book is called Deeper Dating.
Yeah, it's Deeper Dating, but it's to date yourself.
How to drop the games of seduction and discover the power of intimacy, by Ken Page.
Yeah,
okay.
Ken Page is quite famous. He even went on the Oprah show. So I studied with him, I mentored with him. And I didn't do it to find a date, you know. Some people, they do it to find your ultimate date, right? But I was looking for myself, right? I was looking like, who am I, you know? Who are my core gifts? What are my values, right? And through his work and through hypnotherapy, I really realized who I was eventually. Because if you want to be self-confident, if you want to be really self-confident and self-empowered, you need to find out who you are.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something that's really important, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that have no idea who the hell they are, right?
Yeah, of course.
And they're just going and living through life, you know, living a certain way that they think they're supposed to live, or think that they're supposed to be, how act, you know, how they think they're supposed to act. But you know, it's almost like living a facade, you know. So I think what you're hitting on is pretty important. Is like having the self-discovery, whether or not it's trauma related or not, right?
Like, again, we're a therapist, right? Even if people say I don't really have trauma can be really small or it can be huge, right? Everyone has something, right? Everyone has something where he can work on. You know, if for the person, it's okay. It's not really important. He doesn't want to grow out of this. You know, he doesn't really want to bloom in his life. That's also okay, right? But for other people, like dealing with fear of failure, or people who are listening to other people, because we're so conditioned all the time, right?
Yeah.
We're so like used to people telling us, you know,
like
what
how to
do.
feel, how to act, right? How to
like we're in the Matrix, like we're plugged into the Matrix. Like this is like it's like the world we accept. You know?
Yeah. That's how the world is, right? Luckily, I don't know if the percentage is just right. They say like 20% of people are really able, you know, to grow in their self-awareness, to really develop their own self-growth. So
not everybody can. So curious, with the patients you've had so far, have you had any like real extreme cases where it's been
What's
really
extreme?
like, okay, so like someone that's been really gone through some really heavy trauma and it has deeply affected them? I think Justin knows why I'm asking this. It's like it's like
I would
it's
say
really
50-50.
hard to get them out or help them.
Hard to get them out.
Like how to get them out of their trauma, like how to
Yeah. Okay. I'm hearing you.
What's
Like
I
a
think
serious
what
case,
I think what you're asking is like what is the extent of hypnotherapy's effectiveness in terms of like dealing with severe cases?
I don't work with like schizophrenic people. I don't work with people who are suicidal. I could, but I wish to not to. So I send them to psychiatrists. I focus on anxiety, fears, phobias. So most of them have heavy trauma. Most of them have that. Yeah.
Are these things always directly connected to something in your past? Because like, you always talk about regression and going back to these scenes, whether it's in your childhood or whenever. Is it always linked to, can it just be something that just happened to you recently and it's not connected to to your past? You
can have PTSD, right? You've heard from post-traumatic stress disorder. I rather call it post-traumatic stress reaction, right? A disorder. It doesn't sound that good. It's a reaction. This can be something that happened yesterday, right? I don't know, your girlfriend who betrayed you big time. It just happened yesterday. But though also this can really be linked to your past. Yeah.
Do you have anything that pops off the top of your head, Justin, that you feel like...
No, what are you trying to do? No, but I completely...
Because you're so suggestible, right? So
I might still be hypnotized right now. This whole thing...
Right now.
Yeah. Like I wake up and this whole podcast didn't even happen. It was just all my... No, I'm joking. No, but I completely believe that there are, several different states of consciousness, right? Like we experience different levels of consciousness in everything we do. I feel like, but we might not notice it a lot, right? And some of it can be natural, but some of it can be induced. I totally believe that there are several different states of consciousness. So like, what's your view on that? Like, how do you view consciousness as a whole? Is it something that's always fluctuating and in limbo and there's no like real form to it? Or do you see it as more of do you see that there's any kind of structure there?
In our conscious mind?
Yeah.
You mean, so you have the conscious mind and you have the subconscious mind, right? Like I said, the subconscious mind is where all your memories are stored, right? The conscious mind is here to just keep you going every day, Everything is fine. You keep on going. If something clicks back to your memories, you're going to go to your subconscious mind. So all beliefs, all patterns, the subconscious mind is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
The conscious mind is here to keep you planning. It's your logical thinking. Yeah, the things you need to deal with normal life, right? But whatever is stored in the subconscious, this is who you really are.
Have you read the book The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt?
No.
No.
What's that about?
Yeah, he talks about that a lot, and basically the book's about that, and he talks about like the elephant and the rider. Okay. So think of yourself as like there's a passenger, like you're riding an elephant, right? And the person that's riding the elephant, that's really that's the conscious mind. But the elephant itself, which is significantly larger and really in control of where the passenger goes, like the passenger on the elephant thinks they're in control, right? Because they're trying to direct the elephant, but it's really the elephant that's in control of where you're actually going. Yeah. And it's much bigger. And he calls that like the subconscious mind. And that really dictates almost everything we do. Yeah. But we always feel like, oh, we're in control. We feel like, oh, I'm in control of my own decisions, right?
Because we don't want to be out of control.
Exactly. We tell ourselves that, right? But much of it is coded and dictated by our subconscious. And we just don't even realize that code is running.
Of course, because our subconscious, our heart is beating for us without doing anything. We're breathing without doing anything. The nervous system, it's just there. It's the same with the subconscious mind. It's there. You know, you can't really manipulate it. By hypnotherapy, we go back and we cheat the mind. And by cheating the mind, it's like, oh, okay. If she thinks it's like that, okay. At the end, you know, by repeating, because the mind learns with repetition. You know, if you constantly hear, like, I'm enough, I'm confident, I feel good in my skin. If you constantly hear this while you're in a deep relaxation, your mind accepts it, you know, because it's the mind.
Like rewiring.
We rewire the brain, yeah. So hypnotherapy has a lot to do with neuroscience, right? We don't have a lot to do with psychology. We work on the brain, right? We work on the mind.
Is that where a lot of NLP practice comes in?
Neurolinguistics, yeah. So we also use NLP, because the mind works like this, right?
What's NLP? What is that?
Neuro-linguistic programming. So these are techniques.
Okay, they're techniques.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So we as hypnotherapists, we often use these techniques. Not always, you know, but they're really, really good techniques, you know, to use. Yeah. So I was saying, where was I? Now you hypnotized me.
We sure did. No, you were talking about a lot of it is the neurons, right? The neural reactions.
The neuroscience.
The real wiring.
Yeah. Look, there are 3 rules of the mind, right? The first is the mind does whatever you want it to do. You know, so you need to be really specific and tell your mind, I want this, I want this, I want this, which is extremely difficult for people.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a big one. You know, that's. The
but
mind does
it's
what
about
you want
training.
it to do. That's
no, but it's about training. You need, because I know it is very tough. You know, whenever clients come in my office, and I ask them, if I have a magic wand, and I grant you one wish, what do you want? What do you want the outcome to be? That's how we do hypnotherapy, right? And they look at me like, I don't know what I want. It's tough, but at the end it comes. It's something we need to reflect on. Of course we don't know what we want because we're so conditioned, you know? And our mind also, it's easier for us to say, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, you know? But we cannot go in the negative because the mind doesn't understand negative, right? It's like, don't look at that pink elephant. Don't look at that pink elephant. You know, you're only going to
stare at that pink elephant.
Right. The mind doesn't understand that. So that's the first rule of the mind, you know, tell your mind what you want. Right? Like for you, like dealing with anxiety, like I want to be in control of my emotions. I want to be confident, you know, saying what you want. That's really, really key. The second is your mind is always going to put you towards pleasure and away from pain. Right? So, for example, you mentioned something about weight, right? Weight control. We're hardwired for sugar. We are hardwired for sugar, you know, because that's the prehistorics. Our body just wants sugar, right? Some people want more sugar, right? Because in your mind, sugar brings you happy memories. You know, a lot of us, we have like, oh, these cookies I ate with grandma or whatever. She took me to the cinema. I could eat these candies. So a lot of people have these happy memories with candies, right? So in hypnotherapy, we need to switch that. We need to make them indifferent. We cannot make them to hate it. Right? Because you cannot hate something. The opposite of love is being indifferent, right? So we make them indifferent to sugar, right? And from the moment you're indifferent to sugar, then you don't really need it anymore, right? So that's the second rule. The third rule is the mind wants what's familiar. You know, if it's familiar for you to have panic attacks, it's familiar. The mind's gonna get that. It's familiar. It's something that it's used to. You know, you need to make that unfamiliar. And you need to make it familiar to be in control of your emotions.
How do you make something that's already familiar unfamiliar, though? You just stop doing it, right? I mean, like that's easier said than done, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. That's it. It's not a conscious work, right? You need to go to the subconscious. You need to reprogram the mind.
So typically, on average, how many sessions or over what kind of span of time do you find that people are actually making significant progress?
So it depends on the issue, right? If you have phobia, It just takes like 2 sessions. So a session
That
is
quick?
Yeah, a session is like 2 hours, 2 hours and a half. And after 7 days, I call them because I check in with them, right? And also during that they don't see me, I'm available, right? Like you said, most of the work happens with them, right? And I also tell people I do 60%, but you do 40. Okay, so I have a list for them what they need to do. Whenever it doesn't work, they just send me a text or they send me an email, right? They know I'm there. Just that support, just that buffer, the fact that I'm there, it really does a lot for people. So with phobias, I do 2 sessions. Even I work with kids on anxiety, like bedwetting, these things, I would do like two sessions, maximum 3, because kids are highly suggestible.
Do you get a lot of kids?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I what I do is, and I really love that when I get kids, I also work on one of the parents, because last time I had a kid with emotional eating, and often these patterns, we learn this, So I asked the mom, who's the emotional eater at home? And she said, yeah, the dad. Yeah, of course. So I asked one of the parents to come for at least 1 session, because if you change the child, but it goes back to the same environment at home, I don't know what's going to change, right?
Yeah.
So just for that parent to be more aware, also what the work the child is doing, this is really, really transformational. Other issues like anxiety, I work on 8 sessions. Like the first 4 pure on anxiety. Afterwards, anxiety is gone. Huh? So it's not gone, you manage it, right? After 4, you really, really manage it. You change your inner critic in your head. You deal with fear of failure. You can stand up more for yourself. You're more in charge of your emotions. A lot of irrational anxiety, because anxiety is always there, but you also have an irrational part, which is too much, which is giving you the panic attack. It's too much. This we eradicate that, we eliminate that, right? That's the first part. If they're okay, and they're like, okay, I just want to see now, I want to do this a little bit on my own, then they stop after 4 sessions. Preferably, they come and see me for 4 more sessions because I teach them skills, right? Like I told you, you need some skills, like with the coronavirus, who could imagine that, right? So with people with anxiety and fear, this is huge, right? Oh my God, right? So you need skills to navigate that.
So have you been treating anyone during this time?
Yeah.
And what are they having anxiety over the coronavirus itself, or just maybe what it's doing for their like work or business?
I think anxiety over everything, right? It's uncertainty.
Yeah, the uncertainty.
It's uncertainty. What I've been really doing, and I've given a lot of online group sessions, even for free, because I really wanted to work on anxiety awareness. So many people are unaware they have anxiety. They just think, oh, it's my fault. I'm not confident. Oh, my mom has low self-esteem. So I really wanted to take this time, like from January onwards, to really make people aware. If you're having trouble, reach out. Not even to me, reach out to someone else.
I just, this is very particular to where we live now, but do you find that in China, like general awareness to anxiety or like confidence or like depression is just low, like it's almost like irrelevant,
or it's like it's like their default operating mode
or something like that.
Like the normal thing.
Have you thought about that, or have you experienced that at all?
I think a lot of Chinese have anxiety.
Yeah,
but to say that they're more than in the West, of course, mental health, it's quite new here.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm trying to get at.
If you look at psychologists, psychiatrists, I talked with a colleague, another hypnotherapist in Beijing. She's Chinese. And she said, we don't have any psychiatrists here, right? Because I heard it's very, very difficult to get these licenses here in China. So, there is not a lot of mental support.
Do you think it's just because it's culturally, it's more taboo to talk about here? Like, what do you think it is? Why do you think it is the way it is?
Why is there less mental help?
Yeah.
Because I think in the West, we're more individualistic, right? I think here, as they're more like with their own family. They have their own tribe, right? It's not only like I'm gonna go here, like I'm talking about local people. It's not like I'm gonna go to the psychologist, right? Because you need to work on the whole family here, right? Where in the West, I have a problem, I go to my psychologist, right? Maybe I take my husband with me, right? So in China, it's very difficult. It's very, very different. But one way, I wanna share this with you because it's quite interesting. So I had this client, he's an expat, and he's married to a Chinese woman, and he lives with the in-laws, right? Which often happens, right? He has 2 kids. He doesn't really, he can't deal with his in-laws, they're always there, they're always, and he wants to be free, right? He's from the West, he wants to be free, of course, right? But he came in, because he had an addiction, he had huge anxiety. So we started to work, right? So I brought him back to his childhood where he saw that he came from a family who was a kind of broken up family, right? The parents were alcoholics, didn't really care about him. He was very different than the siblings too, couldn't really relate to them. So he grew up really, really alone, right? Now he's here in China with this family, with his family and these in-laws who really want to be a family, right? So I told him, isn't that interesting, right? Because he, as a child, he really longed for love. He longed for connection, but he never had it. At the end, he created it, but it's not familiar for him. He couldn't adapt in it, right? After we did the hypnotherapy, he's like, okay, in fact, they want to connect with me. The fact that he really worked on this, he connected better with his wife. So at the end, the wife said, okay, maybe we should go and live apart, away from the in-laws. So it's quite interesting, if you start to work on something, it has, consequences, it has like this effect on the whole family afterwards, right? But coming again to your question, why is it different here? Yeah, you'll need to work with the whole family. Right? There are Chinese hypnotherapists, huh? There are Chinese
I'm sure there are,
therapists,
but it's just, I think, like the idea of like openly talking and seeking help for mental illness is it just seems like more of a taboo subject here. But it's been taboo for a long time, even in the West, and it's only very recently that it's become really more like acceptable. But for a long time, even then, it was just anywhere, it was very taboo.
Completely, yeah. And I'm wondering, isn't it like resilience related? I think Asians are very, very resilient, right? I think sometimes in the West, whatever happens, it's easy to fall down for us, I think Asians, they're much more resilient. And then dealing with these things like depression, anxiety, if you say, I need to be strong, you don't want to admit. Right? You don't want to admit.
Yeah.
Right? And especially, it's not a very emotional society neither.
Oh yeah, I think that's what it is, because like when you say resilience, like I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with Chinese people are more resilient. I think everyone is resilient, but I think for the culture here, it's just more of a normal thing to kind of Chinese like 吃苦, right? It's like just more of a thing to like accept pain and accept adversity, and that's just a part of life, because China historically is coming from a very different place in recent history than in the Western world. So I think that there's still like a lingering effect in terms of like just being able to accept a lower quality of life in general. And but in the West, it's not. And like you say, people are much more individualistic over there. So there's less tolerance, I think, for accepting any sort of deterioration in their quality of life. I think it's like more of a mentality thing.
I also think it's like a priority system, where it's like, is it a priority? If you feel like you have low self-esteem or low confidence or anxiety, is it a priority to fix that, or is it a priority to go out and make money and pay the bills? And you know what I mean? Like
different mindset.
It's the same thing like in America, where you have you know, a group of people, let's say the ultra liberals that are, you know, about equal rights and all that stuff. And then you have a certain sect of people that are like, dude, that's so far away from my priority right now. Like, I don't care about that. You know what I mean? I care about my job tomorrow. Do I still have a job? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I think it's a priority system as well. And I think in general here, yes, the economy has been growing and people are, you know, there's a big change happening in society, but you still have an overwhelming amount of people that probably won't prioritize mental health.
Yeah.
And which is everywhere, I think. I know probably here in China, like you say, you corrected me well. Yeah, probably wasn't resilience the word I needed to use, was 吃苦. That people, they're tough, you know, they can toughen up here, right, in comparison to the West. But I lived in Italy for a while, and that's the West, you know, that's Europe. Even there, mental health is not a lot of people go to psychologists. For me as a hypnotherapist, it was almost impossible to work there, to get a license. It's very, very controlled. They don't want that, you know. And it's quite interesting because, you know, my husband is Italian, so Italian and Chinese culture is very, very alike.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really? Yeah. Like how so?
The family is very important. Food is very important. Culture, very alike.
The meals are very important, right?
When I left China after 13 years, I moved to Rome, like a year and a half, and I arrived there and I was like, oh my God, again, I'm in China, but they're all Italian. No, it was incredible. It was really, really incredible. Yeah. But I think even in Italy, you know, it's not that available. And again, you know, this is not for everyone, right? This is a mindset thing, right? But though I've been having a lot of conversations with young Chinese women, and they're looking for their voice. You know, something what's coming up more and more, like in talking also with clients and everything, they're really looking for their voice, and they're you know, they're struggling with the old China and the new China. You know, this morning I had a conversation with a Chinese girl, and she said, you know, I come from this poor village in Guangdong. She's very smart, you know, she had her business, she's making money and everything, but then the dad passed away. And the dad apparently left the assets to the son or something, so not to her. So now that's a big thing, right? And she's like, yeah, but I don't have the voice to go in there. You know, how can I manage that, right? So I think there is a shift there, though.
I think there's definitely a shift for women here. I mean, obviously I'm speaking as a man, but from what I see, I think women in China are just becoming a lot more independent, right? In recent times, financially independent, emotionally independent.
But still more so in the first tier cities, though.
Yeah, of course. But that independence is going to bring a whole nother new set of problems and anxiety and fears and just, you know, that they didn't necessarily maybe have to deal with before.
Yeah, there's so much anxiety going on, right? And just making people more aware, you know, that they don't need to suffer. If it's, of course, again, everyone has anxiety, you know, if you can manage it yourself, you have good friends to talk with, you know, you're not alone, you know, that can really help, right? That can
how do you
help.
really define, like, this is a question for both of you, because Howie, obviously you're very familiar with anxiety. Me, like, I feel like I don't really understand anxiety. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like maybe I have anxiety. Who knows? I probably do. But I don't feel like I understand really what it is to have anxiety. Like, what does that really mean? Is it just being nervous? Let me
paint a picture for her, because
like, what's the difference between anxiety and fear?
Yeah,
and
in one of the previous episodes, I was talking about my anxiety and what I go through, and it was like I was speaking an alien language to Justin. He was like, wait, what? Wait, I don't get it. Wait, what? You can't sleep? Wait, what does that mean?
But that always happens when we talk to people who do not have anxiety. They're like, why don't you sleep?
I'm just like so jealous of him. I'm so jealous that you don't know what this is.
Sometimes I can't sleep either. I get a little bit of insomnia here and there, but I don't attribute that to anxiety for me, right? Like, so I don't, like, what does it mean to have anxiety? Like, what does that mean?
Anxiety is like constant worrying. You're constantly worried what's going to happen in the future. You know, you're afraid people criticizing you. You're constantly, all your energy is sucked into that, right? That's anxiety, like not sleeping well, not eating well, or overeating. These are consequences out of that, right?
Yeah.
But your mind is racing.
So
Racing.
you can only really say you have anxiety if it's really affecting your life, right? Because like I worry too. I worry about the future.
But do you
just
have
like
a
anybody
physical
else.
reaction?
Yeah,
I mean,
everyone
that's a big
has
thing.
anxiety, right?
Do you have a physical reaction?
I guess not. Like maybe I don't know. Maybe my overeating can be attributed to anxiety, or maybe I just like to eat. Who knows?
Oh, that's
another thing.
That's
right?
a red flag. That's a red flag.
I think you
Really?
I think you
Whoever
need a
says
session.
I love to eat, that's
No,
yeah,
because I
that's a
do
red
love
flag.
to eat. I'm a big overeater.
I think he needs.
And there's
to,
a lot to dig into there. We don't have to dig into it now, but
Yeah.
I have my bouts with gluttony and binge eating, and especially in the past. It's
Oh.
better now, but it's
Okay.
in the past. I am very, because you mentioned this before. I am very much an emotional eater, and
So that's anxiety.
you know what the crazy thing is? I might not even need your help because I know exactly the scene, a moment, a memory, an experience in my life that made me an emotional leader. Like I am, I know exactly what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to share that?
Well, it's not a very interesting story, but so growing up in New Jersey when I was a kid, and then this was probably in middle school actually, and so my parents, my father was away a lot, so he was never really around the house to begin with, but so it was really my mom there, and there was one summer where they both left. I think they went to Taiwan or somewhere. I forget exactly where they were, but they left for the entire summer.
Okay.
So I'm in middle school, and basically I have the house all to myself for almost 2 months,
Okay.
or like maybe like a month.
Was your
and a
sister
few
there?
How
months.
old were you?
No. I was completely alone
How old?
Yeah.
How old were you?
in middle school.
Like 12? Middle
Nah,
school's like
probably,
12,
probably a little
13.
older. Probably a little older.
12, 13 is
14.
middle school. 12,
Okay, so
13.
maybe freshman. How old are you when you're a freshman in high
14?
school?
14, 15.
So maybe a freshman in high school. Okay, so I'm in my early
2
teens.
months alone.
Early teens.
Home alone.
Early teens, yeah.
Okay.
But that's how my family was. Like we were like very that's just how we were. And it wasn't like they were abandoning me. Like I was so excited to be alone, right? Like I'm a young kid. I have the house for the first time all to myself for a whole summer and summer break. So all your friends are out, like, you can do everything, kind of parties. Anyway, so I was really excited. And then so over the course of a few weeks, it starts getting lonely. And I remember after kind of like the initial excitement of having like being alone for the whole summer, having the house all to myself kind of faded a little bit. I didn't really have any like much interaction, and I was a little bit lonely, and it was getting a little bit boring, and I was kind of wishing my parents would be back already. And so one thing I started doing that not only just took up a lot of just made the time fly by a lot quicker, but something like I truly enjoy doing was, so I would grab the keys to my parents' car. I didn't have a license yet, so I was too young to drive.
You guys all do that in the US, huh?
So I would grab the keys to my parents' car, and I would drive down to the there was I don't know if you're familiar with a family restaurant called TGIF Fridays. So there's a family restaurant called Fridays. It's a big chain in the States. And I would drive down to my local Fridays, and I would walk in and I would order a ton of food, right? And takeout, because I didn't want to eat in the restaurant alone. And I would get it and I would bring it back, drive back to my house and sit in front of the TV and just gorge myself on all this delicious Fridays food. So we're talking
Which
like
is really unhealthy.
really unhealthy. It's like fried, it's like mozzarella sticks, buffalo wings, cheeseburgers, things like that, right? And I made a routine of that. So I did that almost every day as like a routine.
That's crazy.
Like that was the one thing I looked forward to when I woke up, was to like, oh, when I get hungry, I'm gonna grab the keys. And I enjoyed the drive too. I'd blast the music, I was like a little kid. I'm driving for the first. I didn't even have my license, so like it felt like freedom, right? And I would go in. I felt like I was an adult walking in and ordering food and taking it back and eating it, and I loved the food. So I'd made a routine of that. And back then, the consequences were very small in terms of eating because I was young. My metabolism was racing. You know, I can eat all that junk food and still just be fine. You know, I was a thin kid. But my emotional attachment to that period in my life, I feel is probably still really strong because I still do this. I still have the urge to do the same thing again. And I love to eat alone. I don't like to eat with anybody else.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't like to eat with people. I like to eat alone. I prefer to eat alone.
And you gorge when you eat alone.
And I gorge when I eat alone.
So you never eat with other people?
No. I eat with people all the time because I'm an adult and then I'm a functioning human being in society.
But what do you mean?
But I prefer to eat alone if I had the choice.
Because when you eat alone?
Because when I eat alone, I can just eat whatever the hell I want. Exactly.
Just like when you were 14.
And my favorite restaurant to this day is still Fridays.
Yeah, memories.
Yeah.
Right?
So I have a very deep emotional connection to that. And it's like hardwired into my brain. Like every time I even see a Fridays logo, I start salivating.
Yeah, whenever we go on vacation, like together to like Taiwan or anywhere, and there's a Fridays, he wants to go to Fridays.
To go.
It's like Jesus, Justin, why are we going to Fridays?
Like screw the local food. I need to wherever I am. You know, like I'm eating Fridays if I see it. You know?
But that makes sense, right? Because Fridays saved you. You were alone. In the beginning, it was cool. In the beginning, it was nice. But then you were alone. You were still a kid, right? So Fridays became your best friend.
Yeah, it really did.
Of course. And you brought it home.
It really did.
Yeah, of course.
And every time I walk into Fridays, like all the flair and like the badges the waiters would wear and the design inside it and the music, like that still resonates with me today. Like there's something about it that it's like, it just turns me on emotionally. You know what
humanized TGI Fridays.
But isn't it causing you problems, that emotional eating?
Yes, that's why I am overweight to this day. Yeah.
No, but any other problems than overweight?
Maybe social problems. You know, like maybe like social problems because I prefer to eat alone and I get very, like Howie knows this, like I get very picky about what we eat. And, you know, if we're not eating what like I want to eat sometimes, like, you know, I get cranky. I sound like such an asshole right now.
No, but that's how it goes. Again, you know, your mind brings you to pleasure. If you associate that kind of food, like the Fridays food or whatever food, your favorite food, yeah, of course.
Like I cannot eat for a long time. I can fast for a day or 2 days without a problem. But whenever I do decide to eat, like it's gotta be legit. It's gotta be right. You know what I mean? And there's, so I don't know. I still have this issue with eating today that I'm fighting. You know, so.
And do you have that in other aspects of your life? That things need to be legit?
I guess, but I don't think any more so than the next person. I think it's really when it comes to eating, that's where I see the biggest differences between myself and the people around me. That's when I feel the most isolated because I am very aware and self-conscious about like my own eating habits, and I see no one else share those kind of like those same things. And so I feel like an alien. I'm like, how are you not like that? You know? And
what are the same things? Sorry.
I don't know. This
that
like,
obsession with eating a certain type of food and the amount of food.
There's only one other friend that I know of in the whole world that shares similar that thing to me. That's my friend James. But
it's not at the same level. It's different.
I don't know. I think James is pretty crazy too.
He is, but it's different.
Is it?
I think every emotional eater is a little bit different, but there's so many emotional eaters out there.
Do you deal with that a lot?
Before I was specialized in emotional eating.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Before that, yeah, because I am a nutritionist, you know, and I had bulimia when I was young.
Oh wow.
So I know what eating disorders is, you know. So I went to help a lot of emotional eating people, eaters, but it's really deep.
It is really
It's
deep,
major.
Right?
Yeah. It's very deep.
Because eating
it's
is
tougher than anxiety. You know, with him, the anxiety attack, that's, you know, over here. No,
because
really, emotional eating
because it plays on a core fundamental biological need is to eat, right?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with the food, you know. The relationship you have with food is a mirror of the relationship you have with yourself.
What does that mean though? Like, what advice, short of coming to one of your sessions, which I very well might book, but like, what advice can you give me?
For an emotional eater?
Yeah. Based off of what I just told you about myself.
So if you have a magic wand, if I have a magic wand here, what do you want? First, tell me what you want.
When it comes to like eating or just anything?
What do you want?
I want to be able to be completely fine and satisfied with eating less food and healthy food. Like, I want that to be like completely satisfying to me. Like, I see people, right, like that can eat like healthy food and like eat like a bird, like just eat a little bit, and they're completely satisfied after the meal. They're like, oh, they're like patting their stomach like that was a heavy meal, right? I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you didn't even eat. So like, I want to be that. I want that to be completely fine for me, but it's not.
Can I ask you something before I answer your question? Did you feel different as a child? Did you feel different from other children?
Wow. Yeah, I did, very much so. Why? Why is that relevant?
Because I'm hearing you when you're saying like no one else is eating like me, not to that level, you know, or you have some people who just can eat a bit and they're okay.
Yeah. Like, I feel ashamed about my eating, you know what I mean? That's why I prefer to eat alone, I think.
So the four major problems, right, is I'm not enough, I'm not lovable, I can't connect, or I feel different.
Really? Do we have to go there though? Like, I'm not lovable? Like,
No.
Like, I don't
So
feel- I don't know if I feel
you're
like
one
that,
of four, right?
okay.
So these are the four things, right? You're number 4. You felt different as a child.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And as a child, because again, this is subconscious.
But
we
doesn't
cannot
every
solve
child feel
this
different when they're growing up? I mean, isn't that just part of like...
to some extent, you know, to some extent. Some feel different, but they don't have a lot of problems with that. You know, if you felt really, really different as a child, I think I see it as it's very, very interesting. You know, whenever I work with emotional eaters, and I also did with my own journey on emotional eating, we're people, we love to connect. We love to connect. We need connection in our life. But sometimes, I don't know, I'm not talking for you. I just talk about me and my clients, right? Because often we see that there was not enough connection in the childhood, right? And we still keep on having these beliefs, you know, it's difficult for me to connect. I'm different than everyone else. I'm different. But you need to eradicate these beliefs because it's not true. When you eradicate these things like shame, you said shame about eating, shame that everyone is eating normal and only you are eating like this. I'm a nutritionist. I have 2 restaurants. A lot of people have these people. Yeah. A lot of people have these problems of emotional eating. So many people. You know, it starts with small things, you know. Eradicate the beliefs that keep you stuck, you know, and develop that connection.
So is that part of also dealing with people? Because one thing I read is hypnotherapy is very effective in dealing with addiction.
Yeah.
So is there? I mean, obviously there's a level of addiction there as well, right?
What do you mean level of addiction?
Like addiction to food or addiction to that, like that feeling I get when I do eat. Like, it's an addiction, right?
Yeah, it's food addiction. Yeah. I deal with alcohol addiction, smoking addiction, food addiction. Smoking is a little bit different because, you know, that works on the brain with the dopamine and everything. But even with the food, it has the reward system, you know? Yeah. I don't know. It produces dopamine, you know? So you say Fridays, right? Our mind works with 2 things, you know? The words we say and the images we see, that's our reality. For you, Fridays, that's amazing. So your brain... Yeah. Your brain
like, I don't need to take ecstasy. Like, I just have to go to a Fridays. That's my ecstasy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, so that's that. You're so easy to hypnotize, right? That you're so suggestible for that.
No, but I mean, for sure, with Justin sharing this, I mean, as a friend and having shared many meals with him, you definitely have this relationship with food that is different, you know, than what I have, or you know. And it's interesting because I know that you've had this struggle, and I know you've had this, you know, problem that you want to face or you have been trying to face, right? So it is interesting to hear that.
Have I ever shared that story with you?
Now that you said it, I've heard you say the snippets of it, because I remember you told me the first relationship you had with TGI Fridays, but I didn't realize that it was a whole month of that.
Yeah.
I just remember you saying, "Oh, my parents went away, and like I took the cars, and like
it's a whole ritual.
Friday. I didn't know it was like an everyday thing, you know." But but he definitely goes into like this mode where when he's eating, it's like he changes, like literally physically changes. It's interesting because I think it is a deep rooted thing, and I think it's interesting for you. I think it'd be interesting for you to talk it out.
It's an addiction, and your body is used to that.
Of all the things, whether it's anxiety, phobias, food addiction, like what do you find the toughest to work on?
Food addiction.
Really, it is. Well, what do you find is the most common in your practice?
The people, the issue they come with the most, you mean? Yeah. Anxiety.
Yeah. So would that be like, Eric likes to say this, but like public enemy number one in terms of like what you see are the threats today to mental health is anxiety, you feel?
Anxiety and fear, right? There's so much anxiety and fear out there. Even now, right? We're recovering a bit, right? In China, people are back to work, but there's still so much fear.
That's interesting because our one of our previous guests, the psychologist David Ammerslider, he said the same thing. He was like the most common thing he's seeing now is also anxiety. Yeah.
But again, a lot of addiction is anxiety driven. I have a lot of people.
So it's all connected.
Well, anything to smooth out that feeling of anxiety, right? Any type of pleasure to kind of weigh that down a little bit, because I'm the same way. When I have an attack, I'm the first thing I'm looking for is what can I do to make myself feel happy.
You want to numb that.
To numb that.
Yeah, you want to numb, and maybe the same with you. One does it with the alcohol, the other one does it with food. You have people doing it with sex. You have people with sex addiction too. Yeah. It happens with everything, right? Yeah.
So Laimei, if for anyone listening, like what would you suggest? Like how does someone decide? How should someone come to the conclusion that they want to try hypnotherapy?
So people who come to me, they want solutions. They're limited in their life. They're not living the life they want. Their self-esteem is low. They want to get ahead in their career. They want to have better relationships.
Well, would you suggest that they try? Is there anything that you would suggest they try first before trying hypnotherapy, or is that something they should always consider?
Another modality, you mean?
Yeah, or other forms of treatment. I mean, like.
It depends, Again, I first do an intake, like a free intake of 60 minutes with people to see if the modality fits them. If it's not that they need to fit the modality. If this is something that can work for them, if it can work that they work with me, we do this journey together, and then we do it regardless of the modality, Like you talked about David, the psychologist. Psychotherapy is also amazing. I have people with food addiction who go to an art therapist or to a psychotherapist. It's a different modality.
So it just comes down to preference.
People need, like for psychotherapy, for hypnotherapy, some people are really open to it. People who come to me, they're like, yeah, let's do it. I don't care. Yeah.
Like Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson, the boxer, right? He stated publicly once that he was going under hypnosis as part of his training.
Okay.
As far as boxing training. Regularly. Yeah. I think there are a few athletes that do that as part of like a visualization technique, something to kind of any edge they can get on like actual athletic performance. Like they're even using this as a method. So, I mean, I think there's something there.
For sure.
No, for athletes, it's very, very, that's very powerful.
Yeah.
They need mental coaches. It's all here.
And I think like
the body can't
like what you said,
that.
it's like just how open are you to it, and the only way to really know is like if it really works. Just like your own story and how you got started, it's like you just like if you decide to do it, you really learn through just trying it in your own experience. I don't think anyone can really tell you, they can list off maybe the benefits they had for them, but like you say, there are a lot of different forms, and there are a lot of different types of treatment you can go through other than hypnotherapy, but. For those that have tried it and the things that I've read, some people walk away with it with really significant progress and improvements, whether it's anxiety or even addiction that I read about, weight loss, things like this. And then you read about like athletes doing it.
The success rate is very high, and we work in a minimum of sessions, So clients never stay with me for a year or 2 years, I might refer them to a psychologist afterwards. I might refer them to another therapist, afterwards. But like with PTSD, it takes one session. 1 or 2, just to take the trauma out, Some other modalities cannot do this. I don't know any other modalities who can take away trauma that easy, I remember Maston Kip. I'm in a group coaching with Maston Kip. I don't know if you know him.
No.
He's an amazing, he's a trauma-informed coach from the US, right? And he
Shanghai?
also in the US.
Okay.
He's quite famous.
Okay.
I think he studied with Tony Robbins.
Okay.
He's really interesting. And he said hypnotherapy is so powerful. But again, it also, I don't want to brag, right? But it depends on your therapist too. It depends on the modality.
I'm sure. Well, that's with any sort of therapy, right?
Right. Yeah. But hypnotherapy, you have a whole spectrum of hypnotherapy. Right. The thing that I do is rapid transformational therapy with the techniques inside. It's very powerful. Very, very powerful.
How do your clients find out about you?
So I work a lot with doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists.
So a lot of are referrals and recommendations? Or?
I have a lot of referrals, yeah. I do a lot of marketing because I come from marketing. I worked 12 years in marketing before and business development. So I do a lot of marketing. I write blogs. So I post a lot on social.
So if I didn't have this podcast and you weren't here, how would I have looked you up?
Yeah, how can the guests also find you?
Oh, on Instagram. Yeah, they can find me on Instagram.
What's your Instagram?
Laimei Yeung. Yeah, my Facebook, my website, www.laimeiyeung.com.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Laimei, that was I didn't anticipate for it to get so like personal. But
are you feeling okay, guys? Yeah.
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great.
I always have this effect with people, they just open. They just
and
open
snap,
with
and you
me.
guys are like, oh, we're about to start the podcast, Justin.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
You're like, hey, welcome.
Anyway, thank you, Laimei.
Thank you.
It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much, guys. It was great talk. I really loved it.
Thank you for doing this. And let's do it again sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Great.
Welcome.
All right. Well, cheers.
Thanks.
Cheers.
All right, folks. That was Laimei. I'm Justin.
And I'm Howie.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
But as the sun will see